Hey everyone, I'm ThatPodcastGirl C-Dub, and this is a podcast about house music. We're in the middle of this blizzard in New York City, but I didn't want to miss out on speaking to you today. We're following two curves that rise together. One curve is the size of the room, and the other curve is the size of the sound chain. House music's live ecosystem didn't scale because DJs suddenly got more talented. It scaled because the rooms changed, and the machinery behind the rooms changed with them. The invisible part of the club, the so-called back room, the processing racks, the amps, the system tech, quietly became the difference between a night that felt like chaos and a night that felt like ritual. So, we're going to start where the room is still improvised. The chain is still physical, and the DJ is still building the idea of a long-form set in real time. Imagine Chicago, late 1970s. The warehouse is the kind of place that makes sense only when you remember what cities looked like then. We've talked about it a few times in previous episodes. It was an industrial vacancy. It was cheap square footage, concrete, minimal ornamentation. The point wasn't luxury. The point was about capacity. Space that could hold bodies, hold vibration, hold heat, and hold time. That hold time part matters, because what begins to happen in rooms like this is duration. A DJ can tell a story over hours. A transition can breathe. The crowd can settle into a groove long enough for the groove to become a world. That's a venue scale change right there. The night becomes long form. Now put your attention on the booth. Beat matching had already existed in disco culture, but house inherits a new level of stability through equipment that can take physical punishment and still keep a steady hand. Direct drive turntables become the backbone of the booth. The Technic's 1200 lineage, and especially the MK2 era, matters here because it normalizes a certain kind of control. High torque, pitch adjustment that responds, a deck that behaves like an instrument under real club vibration. That stability changes the set. The DJ isn't just choosing songs. The DJ is shaping a continuous line. And while the booth is refining, something else is quietly rising in importance. The system. Back then, the sound chain isn't a clean digital menu you tap through. It's electrical and physical. It's the stack logic of real-world control. EQ to tame a room, crossovers to split frequencies so speakers aren't fighting each other. Limiters to keep the system from shredding itself when the crowd peaks. Amplifiers with enough headroom to stay clean instead of collapsing into harshness. This is where house music begins to reveal its first real truth. A room can both ruin a record and also make a record feel like prophecy. By the time you get to New York, that truth becomes an identity. Paradise Garage opened into legend because it treats the sound system as the product. The address becomes a promise. People don't only show up for a song, they show up for the feeling of the low end landing the same way across the floor. That evenness is not luck. That is system design. That is placement. Tuning. That is a room engineered to behave. And now the curve steepens. As the 1980s move forward, the music changes what it demands from a club. Drum machines and bass instruments shift the entire physical request. The TR-808, the TR-909, and the TB-303, which we didn't talk about in the last episode. These are machine-made low ends, machine timing, and transient punch. This is music that punishes weak systems. A kick like that needs headroom. It needs clean sub-response. It needs a room that can take sustained pressure without turning the dance floor into mud. The set gets tighter. The drum programming gets more disciplined. The bass becomes a signature. Clubs either support that demand or they become places where the record sounds like a rumor of itself. Then comes the detail that quietly changes the world: MIDI. Once machine timing can be standardized and synced, producers can build in a way that becomes repeatable. That repeatability travels straight into club expectation. People start wanting that tightness every time. A venue that can reproduce it consistently gains a new kind of authority. Now the back of room is no longer passive support. It's cultural power. And as rooms get larger, with longer layouts, bigger crowds, higher volume targets, and unique spaces like the tunnel, clubs don't survive on loud stacks alone. They need repeatable control. They need predictability. They need systems that can be tuned and protected and reset night after night. By the early to mid-1990s, you can feel the next shift coming. Processing chain becomes more integrated. Crossovers, EQ, limiting, delay are functions that used to live across separate boxes. They begin to collapse into more unified control. This is what makes scale coherent. This is what allows a big room to behave like one instrument instead of a handful of competing speaker stacks. The room actually becomes part of the instrument itself. At the same time, something else begins to rise: touring, lineups, bills, and the DJ name. Because the minute the sound is consistent enough to feel like a product, the DJ becomes exportable. The night becomes replicable in different cities. The booth starts functioning like a stage and a pipeline. It's kind of like product management. And the booth technology begins to follow that logic too. CD workflow starts arriving with DJ-friendly features because touring friction is real. It's heavy to fly crates of records. It's hard to keep a lineup tight when every DJ's library is physically massive. So manufacturers start translating vinyl technique into new formats: pitch control, pitch blend, instant start, jog behavior. The booth adapts to the reality that DJs are moving more and playing more rooms, and they're being booked because their name now carries weight. This is where the headline era begins forming as a business logic. Not in one moment or just in one city, in a very slow accumulation of conditions. As the room scaled and the system scaled, the music scaled its demands, its portability, and its marketing. And suddenly a DJ isn't replaceable staff. He is the reason people travel. So when someone says, when did DJs become headliners? I always think about it as a convergence. A residency becomes a contract with a room. A room becomes a brand with a sound. A sound becomes a reason to show up. And once people show up for that, the DJ name becomes the thing you can print big on the flyer. And that's what we're tracking. In the next episode, we'll stay inside the same thesis and we'll move forward in time. We'll talk about how big room engineering becomes a competitive weapon, how super clubs and destination venues turn the sound system into a signature, and how the booth becomes a prize that DJs want because the room itself can elevate them. As always, if you want to reach me, you can email me at ThatPodcastGirlCdub@gmail.com. Until next time, keep the beats alive.